Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be working on the E36. As you can tell, we're going to be doing some wheel bearings. So this is kind of a weird thing that happened is I was just driving the car. I noticed a little bit of steering wheel shake, but I have pretty much had that since I put the aftermarket steering wheel on. So I thought that was just part of the game with a lighter steering wheel. So I basically drove around like that for probably 5 to 6 months. And it never really got worse. I never really noticed anything about it until a couple weeks ago. We were driving over to a car show and Alex was beside me and he noticed my wheel was about to fall off. So me, scared as can be, I pulled over, kind of looked at it. The wheel seemed pretty stable, but driving home after the car show, noticed the other side was doing it as well. So basically, long story short, I'm pretty sure my wheel bearings are bad. Either way, if this is not the issue, it's good to replace these things. My car has just under 180,000 miles, so wheel bearings is one of those wear items that is going to come up at some point in time, and it's better to do both at the same time as well. So that's what we're doing here. Everything you see here came as a kit from ECS Tuning. I'll throw the link in the description below for you to check out. Some awesome things about this is it comes as an entire kit with all the seals, the caps, new locking nuts, obviously the wheel bearings that are pressed into a new hub. So that's kind of saves you a lot of work as well as having to use a press if you don't have one. And it comes with the socket that's needed. This does come as a pair, so this is basically addressing the whole front, and I believe it was just under $300. With this kit, I believe it also includes lifetime warranty. So if it wears out, you can basically take it off, send it back to them, and they'll send you a new one. Let's get the car in the air, get the front wheels off. I'll kind of show you guys what I'm dealing with. So the problem here is my wheel is not spinning freely. The brake rotor kind of does this and wobbles back and forth while I'm driving, and even at low speeds, what I notice is there's an actual grinding sound coming from this front right wheel. A crazy weird sound that I've never heard before, so that's pretty much what directed me towards the wheel bearing versus like a warped rotor, especially since these rotors are fairly new. Now when I do this, it's got some lateral play. So if I look inside while I do this, the tie rod's not moving. So that tells me that most likely the wheel bearing is bad. So basically we can just take the wheel off and start kind of disassembling the rotor and taking the spacers out and pretty much get it down to the bare hub itself. So we'll take our wheel off. Take my wheel spacer off. So as you can see here, I have a stud conversion. So I may run into the issue where I may not be able to take these studs out of the current one and swap it over to the new one. But now that we have the wheel off, now we can go and take the caliper off and the rotor off as well. And rotor comes off. So you're not really gonna be able to tell if there's slop here. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna move this dust cap, and you're gonna need to get like a flathead screwdriver or some sort of pry tool down in there and basically hammer it off, because behind this is actually a nut that we wanna get access to. There we go. Guess you kinda just have to get behind it. The nut that's on here has a little tab that's bent in, so we'll wanna bend that out. There we go. And use that supplied socket to break this thing loose. Is there a reason why you don't want to fucking go in? Wow, that thing is on there. All right. This is gonna be interesting. This nut was on pretty tight, but I was able to get it with kind of just like jumping on the end of this thing for a little bit. But once we take this nut off, and the nice thing is we get new ones of these, so we don't have to reuse that tab. Now you can see this whole inner race of the bearing is here, but you may need basically a hub puller or a bearing puller in order to kind of get this thing off. So we'll see if we can get it off by hand. I kind of doubt it, but I think at this point I'm going to try and start getting these studs off before I go any farther. And if you're curious how I'm getting these studs off, throwing on one of my nuts here, and then another one, and then I'm tightening this outside one and the inside one together. And now I basically am able to unscrew this, throw a pry bar in here, like so. And now, after some grip, you'll see that the stud will start to start unscrewing. So please excuse how janky this is. I wouldn't normally do this if I had the right tools, but you know, we're just kind of working through it. I don't think this is the right, yeah, so it's gonna be a 14. So it seems to be pulling them off. Oh, there it goes. Oh, there it goes. Nice. So that worked out pretty well, actually. However, this thing is completely shot on the inside, because I'm pretty sure that's supposed to come with it, and it didn't. So here's a little before and after. Looks like the inner part of the bearing completely just kind of shattered. It's supposed to look like this, and clearly these bearings are open. So that's a huge problem. And I think the remaining covering of the bearing, like the outside part, is still here on here. So that's going to be a tough one to figure out how to take off. So because these new wheel bearings, I was kind of looking over it, they don't have basically the bearings themselves exposed, so they won't really fit over this inner kind of lip here. So what we're going to actually have to do is have to pull this off if you're going to be using this style, because this won't fully get seated unless we remove this. Since this in here is a smooth surface, it's flat all the way, and it doesn't meet that curvature. So this little cap that sits on the inside here, we'll have to take this off. And this is kind of what it looks like now that we have this off. Now it's time to put our new bearing on. So here comes sort of the really brutal part. Now we take our bearing, hub assembly, this whole thing basically, get it lined up and just gently slide it on. And try your best to kind of get it as straight as possible. It's going to get stuck. And now what we're going to have to do is we take our socket like this. What this does is it creates a nice even surface, and we're basically going to just hit it on with a mallet. Just going to get it started here. Basically we're going to go until it won't go on any farther. You'll also be able to tell because it'll be nicely lined up with our speed sensor. And now I'm going to take our new nut, screw this thing on there, and you can see now it won't really slide back and forth. It spins freely, I don't hear any weird noise in there. And our speed sensor is perfectly lined up. So at this point, now we got to torque this thing down, and it's 213 foot-pounds, so quite a bit. And I was fortunate enough, my friend was able to let me borrow his torque wrench, since these actually have to be torqued to 213 foot-pounds, so this nut here. Mine didn't go that high, so I had to borrow his. But now that we have this on, I was able to get my studs back in, and now it's time we can kind of hit the lip of this nut into the spindle here so that there's no way for it to come undone. So we'll kind of just get into position here. And basically, in order to get these lips, I took a chisel here, kind of shaped out a little tab, and then hammered that tab in. And at this point, now we can pretty much just put everything back together in reverse order. We can put our brake caliper on. Brake caliper can now go on with our set screw here. Put our caliper back on. And now that we have our caliper back on, you can see that this thing spins way more freely than it did before. So this is a huge sign. Our pads are no longer making contact, you can hear. So this is awesome. I'm glad that this was the problem. So now with this, because I just put Loctite on, I'm gonna let this sit for a couple hours, and then I'll be putting my wheels back on. But that is gonna be it for switching out your wheel bearings. Again, there were some challenging parts, especially trying to remove that nut that's on here. Basically just used a giant breaker bar to get that thing loose. But other than that, it was pretty straightforward, making sure that you have the right tools. I do recommend getting one of those hub pullers if you don't have anything laying around your house. It will probably make it a little bit easier just to get that kind of inner race part that gets left on the spindle off. But other than that, pretty straightforward swap. I hope this video helped you guys. But that's going to be it for the video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.